No more I don't like a lot of the startup stuff aside. But anyway, the values sort of fall on this thing. So anyone around here is sort of appropriately located. So if you're, the very best thing you can do is like, I'm a doctor, you know, you're doing tons of social good, and then, you know, there's a lot of people who are doctors that, you know, you fall along that line. The issue is this not super meaningful either, because how the fuck do you even determine these things? And also, I mean, is there any one goal or replaceability or anything like this? And I feel like at the end, I'm just left in the very beginning when I'm a kid, choosing projects at random and having fun. And I think that in reality, I have like a hybrid between these two sort of purposes. Like on the one hand, I want to have this high social value and being like the best person I can. And maybe society should be doing something like this on a macro sense. But personally, I think I just choose projects sort of on an aesthetic look. Like I look at something and I think, why do I like this? Well, it's probably because I used to blow shit up when I was a kid, and I like making stuff. And then the religion gave me this like purpose because I used to go up to people as an evangelical guy and be like, all of your cherished beliefs are wrong. You know, and so I'm used to like trying to like make people believe my ideas. So maybe that's why I make stuff, you know? And that's, I guess, like where I'm at right now. So I don't know what you were thinking I would do then, Con. This is sort of my talk. I guess one of the things, you said we can do interactive shit, right? You said we can do interactive shit, right? In this. Yeah. So one thing I was wondering is like, what do you guys maximize on in your life? I mean, do you pick projects this way? And then, I mean, I look at value stuff, so I always think of like, what? Like, who was the guy who was the best human ever? You know, who like helped humanity the most? And any guesses? Any people who have like opinions on that? Boom.
I've heard a good sort of unexpected answer on that. Was asked at the beginning of some conference a few years ago, and the answer that they gave was the guy who invented the shipping container.
Really? Interesting. What's the rationale of that?
You know, in terms of economics, I think it's a really strong case because, you know, millions of those move around the world like every day, and, you know, probably like almost everything in this room has been in one, you know, except for people, I guess.
So decreasing the marginal like value of shipping? Yeah. Okay, in mass. Any other guesses, or not even guesses? There's no actual answer.
I've heard agricultural revolution stuff. So people who have invented new fertilizers.
So I think that the answer I usually think of this is exactly that. It's Norman Borlaug, the Green Revolution guy. If you guys don't know who Norman Borlaug was, he got a Nobel Prize supposedly for he invented this like a series of crops and fertilizer regimens that like quadrupled the output of agriculture in like a lot of like Mexico, India, China, I think. Go ahead.
I would go with Stanislav Petrov. Stanislav Petrov, he's a Russian, he was like a Russian military operator, and saw on his screen it said that the United States was launching nuclear weapons, and he did not hit the button to retaliate.
Interesting. No, that's
But so
yeah.
I think that the problem if we adopt this is that there was really nothing special about him. He was just in the right place at the right time and did the right thing.
Irreplaceable.
Yeah, he was definitely replaceable. He just happened to be in the right place at the right time to save the world.
You know, this happened many times though. My dad was actually involved in a similar incident during the Cold War. Like, the Russians, we accidentally ran a training tape, and we thought the nukes were coming in. They had all the codes and shit in it. This is during the Carter administration. It's crazy. But like, there's a lot of people who have that happen, so I'm not sure. Like, there's a good amount. There's one of that.
Beyond the kind of leadership question, I was like kind of James Marsh's approach in looking at like it's not always the one individual that's advanced humankind or something like that, but just kind of balancing it more the massive middle populace that are just competent, daily work with competence.
If you're going to be a person, though, do you strive to be the general competent, or do you want to help everyone become competent, or like, what do you? I mean, if you're thinking that way.
True. I guess I've always believed about just whatever I'm doing, the kind of how do you pick what project you do next or things like that. It almost doesn't matter as long as you're doing that as best you could. You're the best like that person in that role at that point in time, and everything else kind of takes care of itself.
So this is what I was wondering actually. It's like, can we actually combine this and have like a Z coming out here? And is there some kind of like fit with your own personal like, you're the chaotic like what project I want just from a aesthetic point of view? Is there a maximization where I actually, this kind of comes out here, and if I really, really like making stuff, and I'm really, really in this corner, that's like sort of the ideal, but I really should probably maximize on what you're saying, like that aesthetic, because I'm not even going to achieve shit if I don't like it and I can't, won't get burned out on that stuff. So it makes sense, for sure. Any other opinions on this?
Well, the thing is, the question reflects your training on fundamentalist concepts.
Yeah.
So people are replaceable or they're not replaceable. Who's the most replaceable? What's the context? what, you know, when, now or 10 minutes from now, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, this is what these measures are.
So if you're somebody's dad, you're irreplaceable, even if you're the worst dad in the world, right? You're still irreplaceable.
I mean,
You can
yeah,
only
on
be
that.
his dad, that's it, end of story. So I have a problem with the question.
Okay.
Because he has this, oh, there's only one answer kind of thing. It's
Well, I don't
always a
think
matter
it is,
of
but-
context, it's a matter of, like somebody says, the guy who didn't push the button, it was the right time at the right place. Holy shit, that guy was irreplaceable at that time. 10 minutes later, you know, playing dominoes or something, he probably was a lousy player of dominoes. So yeah, it was irreplaceable. So it's all context based.
What do you think about the idea of purpose? Do you think it's an irrelevant concept, or do you have your own?
Yes, yes. Purpose in the grand sense of, you know, purpose from a personal point of view, from your own perspective, absolutely. There's something that makes you tick or doesn't make you tick. But purpose,
That's
as
what I
in,
mean. I don't
vice
think
versa
that's
applies to everybody. It's like, no, you're back at telling me that my shares views are no good.
Yeah.
So be careful. You know, you have to be very careful. We all have to be.
Well,
We're all fundamentalists, by the way. We're all
When you
fundamentalists.
pick a personal, yeah, I assume there's no like God saying this is your purpose,
Right.
or some objective way of doing it. But when you pick that purpose,
Mhm.
how do you pick that? Or do you just fall into it? You know?
You put your hands in your pockets, and if it feels good, you go with it. As you, for me, make it an impact. If I'm doing something and writing this beautiful thing, but I'm only one that's going to read it, then you know that's like masturbating, right? But if I want to make an impact, I got to get it up there. How do I get it up there? I find people like Venkat, who can get 50 people in the room and shit like that. So it's all from what's the impact that you want to have for me, okay? And how do I get it up there?
For
So
sure.
starting businesses, that's a way to have an impact.
So I mean, when impact, I mean, I guess that's just subjective. So it's, I mean, good, whatever. It's just you.
Right.
So yeah, it makes sense. You had a question, right? Or-
I was just going to add on to everything's contextual argument. You know, if you believe that we're advancing on some sort of exponential curve, whatever your level of zoom is on that exponential curve, you have a different inflection point.
Sure.
You know, so if you're looking at 100 years, then, you know, maybe it's the guy who hit the button on the nuclear bomb. But if you're looking at, 300 years from now, maybe that guy could have hit let the
Sure.
nuclear, sent off the nuclear bombs, and 300 years from now, society would have rebuilt itself and returned to.
That guy was amazing because only the best people survived, and then yeah, he's the Jesus character.
But
yeah.
I mean, there have been all sorts of catastrophes throughout history
Sure.
that human civilizations recovered from, and
This still seems like a broad, like, what would God say if you asked him this question with that? Of like, well, what time span are you operating on? This is sort of, I think, one of his point, the like personal purpose driving. What's your answer to that?
I side with the just do what feels right. There's actually a lot of evidence now that our feelings are more accurate than analytical reason when dealing with very complex problems. You give someone a complex set of data, and you ask them how they feel about some question, they're more likely to pick the right answer than you ask them to reason about it.
That sounds like the ball of urine now. And there's tons of shit where like everyone's predictably irrational, and you have like the blink, which is this position.
I'm not sure I thought of that.
Well, yours is sort of like the blink thing. You look at a bunch of complex shit, you don't really know if you have intuition, and then as predictably irrational, like everyone sucks all the time at doing some things.
Nick, I kind of lost the thread of that.
Yeah, sorry. I'm
Can
taking his
you
help.
summarize
This is Mr.
that?
Castor.
You've got a question here, but can you summarize? I kind of lost the thread of what you two were saying.
Oh, sorry. I mean, go ahead.
Well, I think he asked me what my standard is. And I was just saying there's a lot of research now that if you're asking people to make decisions about complex multivariate problems, their kind of intrinsic intuitions and feelings about those the answers to those problems are much more accurate than their analytical reason. So I was just reading about one study. They have people look at a bunch of stock market information, and obviously this is, it's very difficult to predict what's going to happen with the stock market. But they have these people watch the ticker tape every day for a certain contained number of symbols, and then they say, based on some analytical process, where do you think symbol X is going to be in 4 weeks? And then they say, when you think about symbol Y, how do you feel? And just based on if you feel good, pick a high number. If you feel bad, pick a low number. The latter predictions are much, much more accurate than the analytical predictions.
Jay, how much more time do we have, by the way?
Jay?
We've got till 10:50.
Oh, sick. All right, cool. Whoever wants to quick draw. Boom, quick draw.
Cool. So I guess I wanted to talk a little bit about a heuristic or something I found for myself. So I've often, gone through like trying to trade off these axes for myself. In particular, I've looked at replaceability or sort of what do I want to do, what's fun for me, what am I good at, and also good for the world. And I guess the heuristic I found is that trying to optimize good for the world is actually a bad heuristic. So it's for me that's an anti-pattern. And I guess I want to talk about that a little bit. So partially the problem is that when you really, I think the desire to improve the world, is really important, right? I do think I want to leave the world better than I found it. But the problem is you try to maximize for that and you try to optimize it, and you get things that aren't fun for you, that you aren't that good at, and so you're not able to be passionate about them and you're not able to really deliver. The other issue is that I think that we are really bad at predicting the consequences of what's going to happen in any complex project. And so you try to optimize for the good of the world, but you actually don't know as much about those projects because they're more in far mode if we top hands a little bit. And because of that, you're less able to predict what's going to happen and whether that thing is actually a good or bad outcome at all. And so I found that for myself, when I chase those, improve the world outcomes, I don't have fun, and also I don't improve the world. And that's why I think that the best way to improve the world is maybe not to try that hard.
That you can get feedback on at a high rate. Because only if you get feedback can you change your and you keep getting better. So that's the path. Whatever. So if you want to start a company, you would move to San Francisco. You put yourself in a place where you can get feedback on something. If you want to help people on a physical level, you would go to medical school, right? So whatever you want to do, whatever project, whatever feels good, put yourself on a high feedback rate path, and that's how I optimize.
That's really interesting because if you're totally unreplaceable, there's nobody else who even knows what it is you're working on.
Well, you're never totally unreplaceable, right? Because you get there, right? You get there, so you become Stephen Hawking. But
people will know
the
what
path
you're working on
is-
by your impact, but they won't be replaceable in the sense that someone can just jump in and start doing what you're
Exactly, it's a path. The replaceable, like when we get there, we wouldn't be sitting in a room like this. People would be watching us, like we'd be giving speeches.
Yeah, but you still wouldn't be like, even like to your point, I think that the actual opposite is true. Like, if you actually are like, it's like the grad students who knows like everything about the receptor site of this one bacterium of, like they don't know a ton more than, some professors been there forever. They're like a mixture of a bunch of different fields and research together. So you still can learn from mentors and still not be replaced in a field,
I'd like to kind of frame this debate in another couple of words. I feel like we're talking about local optimization on the one hand, where you look around you and pick the best thing, and global optimization, where you try to select from the set of everything. And I think we're just talking about going back and forth between those two.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think to make the argument that if it feels good, you're ultimately doing good, is slipping into hedonism in a way that's really kind of unhelpful. Like there needs to be some sort of there needs to be some sort of measure of what objective social good is. Even whether it's specific or not, you can't just say, well, it makes me feel good and I'm good at it, so I'm improving the world. Because we've got a lot of structured derivatives traders that aren't doing some great things in the world, but they're certainly maximizing their own.
I'm saying the end point, you have an end point in mind, and that does have some impact. But the path might not lead you, the path is just feedback.
I think it's not true that you do it. So, sorry.
Yeah, sorry to cut short this discussion, but it's time to give our next speaker. So, better enough before we get into it than not getting into it. Next person up is Sam Tiger. He works at Industrial Light and Magic, and he lives in a houseboat in Sausalito.
Especially with
Yep.
You forgot to say
Always the audience. I'm glad you erased that.